Hey, what's going on, roleplayers? It's the Bard here, and welcome back to the corner. And we've got an awesome request today. Love all your hard work. Would you ever try a Symbiote build? I think you'd nail a Venom or Carnage. My subscribers have the best ideas. Venom is one of my favourite villains because he's got so much he can do. So many different powers, so many different utilities. I think I've got just the poison for you.
Interested?
While the concept of a melee combatant without any weapons isn't particularly unusual, what is a bit strange is when you haven't got any monk levels and you're still getting up close and personal. Doubly so perhaps if you're some kind of arcane spellcaster combination. I think this is the route we're going to have to take, because not only does the character have an array of unique powers, he's also quite the brawler. He's always in a fistfight. He's always in some kind of test of strength. So not only are we going to need some spell slinging, we're also going to need some melee based levels as well. What you're probably wondering about though is why we're not going monk. The main thing I want this build to revolve around is the Alter Self spell. This is our primary spell. Change Appearance is amazing for infiltration. Aquatic Adaptation is brilliant if you get stuck in the water. And of course the natural weapons are the main thing you're going to be used for attacking. Alter Self's natural weapons not only do respectable damage, but they also strike as +1 magical weapons as well. Something I also find to be quite important is the concept of a symbiote working together with a host, two creatures working together for mutual benefit. If you already had something like monk levels and an unarmed damage that was already doing a fair amount, then it would kind of supersede the point of having a symbiote in the first place. So I see a symbiote as improving on its base host's already formidable abilities. So we're going to go with Battlemaster. Alter Self changes your armed attacks into natural attacks, allowing you to use your battle maneuvers with them, and not only are you getting more dice of damage, but you're also getting unusual compound effects. These abilities are either adding versatility, or they're making the classes work in such a way that they more accurately reflect the character that you want to play as. So Venom has this incredible morphic quality about him that allows him to create tendrils in different shapes and teeth and claws that allow him to attack or be used for other utilities. I wanted to pair that up with the concept of a symbiote, where it enhances the host's abilities. Lunging attack gives you that additional range that allows you to use your newly acquired natural weapons from the Alter Self spell. This maneuver is best used when there are things in front of you and you want to attack a creature beyond that point. It also works very well in conjunction with certain spells and effects that reel in creatures for a closer attack. You may be able to pull a creature far enough forward, but there's an obstructing obstacle in the way. If it can't get past the obstacle, you'll be able to lunge over it or around it in order to strike the creature that you want to. The important distinction in this instance is the difference between character movement and range of an attack, so you get a little bit of both that work together to complement each other, rather than overriding each other. Sweeping attack is great for representing those liquid and amorphous effects that the symbiote has, so things like the teeth and the claws all bursting out of the creature at the same time, striking at multiple foes with the symbiote's unique qualities. It's not just being able to attack multiple creatures at the same time, but it's also getting the qualities from that attack onto another target as well. As an example, it might be using the attack's attributes to overcome certain resistances. It might even be possible to combine it with certain feats. Talk to your DM and see what they say about it. Pushing attack is another one I've included because Venom is physically strong and he can throw his enemies around like a rag doll. And you don't always want to be up close to something, you don't always want to reel them in, so having the options to either move a creature away from you or pull it in when necessary is always going to be handy. Classic Venom would happily throw someone into an object or chuck him off the top of a building. So it's good for flashy cinematic encounters. Pushing attack allows you to knock creatures off cliffs or off bridges, and he would just as much do this as he would use his symbiotic abilities. The symbiote is well known for having a bit of a cruel streak, so that should really be reflected in the combat as well. Making the choice between Sorcerer and Warlock was an incredibly difficult decision, because there are things in both classes that I really wanted to apply to this build. Thematically, Warlock would have been the ultimate choice because of the Great Old One patron, but mechanically, Sorcerer works better and it gives more variance and more flexibility to the character. I made the decision to go with Sorcerer because the spells are more closely related to what the symbiote can really do, and the objects or followers that you get as a warlock just don't fit the character at all. You don't want a familiar following you around. You don't want to be carrying a weapon or some kind of books. You are supposed to be able to do all that yourself. However, I'm not going to dismiss it outright. You might have a whip that's shaped to look like an alien tendril, or perhaps you've got a bone dagger that's come from an alien creature. Perhaps you have a mace or something that's a part of an asteroid or a piece of space debris or something. So there are plenty of options. If you went with Pact of the Tome, perhaps the alien construct has weaved a massive webbing or something around you. That would be your Book of Shadows instead. So maybe it just comes down to a bit of reskinning. You know, having an alien tendril whip or something and combining that with lunging attack could give you a lot of distance covered. And of course, being able to go packed weapon could also give you the benefits of Eldritch Smite and other similar effects. So it's not a completely superfluous thing. But what I am trying to do for you guys is to cut down on the amount of levels that we're using. Because every time you take levels in one class, it's advancement you're not getting in another. By concentrating on Warlock levels instead of Sorcerer levels, you would miss out on certain things, like Web for example, and definitely Alter Self. You can get Alter Self as a Warlock, but it's an invocation and 15 levels of Warlock is just too much. Great Old One Warlock works as a good 1-level dip. It gets you the Awakened Mind ability so you can speak telepathically to other creatures. You can also choose the spell Arms of Hadar. Dark tendrils erupt from you and batter all creatures within 10 feet. These are a couple of useful options from Warlock, but they're not actually necessary, as well as the fact that Sorcerer gives you access to more spells that suit your purpose. It's only something you might want to go into as a dip, and even then, you don't actually need to, so it's completely optional.
Eddie Brock? How did you get up here? Same way you did, Spider Punk.
Best line ever. For your powers, you're going to need to grab the Magic Initiate feat, just so you can get hold of Thorn Whip and Primal Savagery. Thorn Whip can be a great ensnaring web, or it can be a symbiotic tendril which you can use to pull a target towards you so that you can get him into close combat where Venom really wants to be. Once your target's in close, you can then start using things like Primal Savagery. This spell is a powerful acid strike, but not only that, it's also a cantrip, so you can then go with something like Quicken Spell. So with your Alter Self running, you can use your warrior attacks to attack with a bludgeoning tendril or piercing teeth, and then you can use a bonus action to cast a cantrip if you've got the quicken magic feat so that you can get an acid like bite. All of these techniques together give you a variety of different damage types so you can overwhelm your opponent and adapt to the combat as you need to. It just wouldn't be Venom without a decent poisonous attack, so perhaps Poison Spray could go on your list. You could make it a particularly potent poison if you went with a meta magic feat like Heightened Spell, for example, to give disadvantage on the saving throws. Venom is highly resistant to many forms of attack, including lots of energy types, only really showing a weakness for fire and sound. So Absorb Elements is a great spell to reflect some of the resistances he does have. Not only that, it's good because you can also get additional dice for your melee attacks as well. Additional dice can be just as good as additional attacks, because the concept of attacks is a very abstract one in role-playing games. So it's a great mechanic for showing a form of retaliation with those multiple symbiotic effects. Jump wants to be in your list because you want to be able to quickly get around the battlefield and you want to get advantage from the high ground and that kind of thing. And of course the symbiote is very adaptable and very strong as well, so jump is a very good choice. The symbiote and its host should never be at risk of falling. It would naturally be wanting to throw out webs or use its spider climbing abilities in order to latch onto walls. Still, as a visual mechanic, it doesn't really work, but most of the time people would just leave it until the very last moment to cast anyway, so it wouldn't really be an issue. You wouldn't notice that feathery falling effect. Alter Self is your main spell, obviously, so you're going to want to pick it as soon as you possibly can. Since you want to be using this as much as possible, a real good consideration would be Extend Spell, just so you can get as much out of the duration as you possibly can. You want it for multiple combats, you want multiple uses for infiltration. If you are stuck in the water, then you want to be able to adapt. This is one of the best spells to actually have Extend Spell with, because you're allowed to change the function that you're using from round to round. So of course, if you've got a long duration of it and you can keep changing the functions, it has no end of versatility for you. And of course, every wall-crawling menace should have Spider Climb. How else are you going to get to the top of those big buildings? The spell's duration is up to an hour as well, so again, it's another great candidate for Extend Spell. Spider punks these days have such low-grade webbing. Show them how it's done with everyone's favourite controlling spell, Web. This spell's a great candidate for Quicken, it's a great candidate for Extend, it's a great candidate for Heighten. It doesn't matter which of these meta magic feats you've picked, they're gonna be compatible with this spell. Once you get up to 3rd level spells, Haste is always an amazing choice for a fighter-sorcerer combination. Multiple actions, improved speed, better defenses, it's really just a no-brainer. Depending on just how adaptable you want your symbiote to be, you could actually go with something like Waterwalk. Don't be fooled by the name. This thing can do so many different things. You don't have to worry about difficult terrain from mud, you don't have to worry about difficult terrain from snow, and if you're in some real nasty environmental hazards like lava or acid, you can just stand on top of it without taking any damage at all, because the spell treats those liquid surfaces as though they were harmless solid ground. Now of course you would still take damage from the heat, but then again Venom does take damage from heat anyway, and of course it's going to be much easier to avoid that lava damage if you can quickly sprint across it rather than having to swim through it. I know. Physics be damned, game mechanics for the win. Of course Evard's Black Tentacles was going to make the list. There's nothing I can say about it that isn't already in the description. It does good damage, it's a decent controlling effect, and of course it has the thematic theme and it just looks the part as well. Evard's Black Tentacles should be in the list no matter what, regardless of whether you're playing a symbiote character or not. The spell is just too good. Polymorph might be worth giving some consideration to. Now you can't cast spells whilst this is running, but then again you can still concentrate on it, so that shouldn't be an issue. So you might want to use it for those amorphous qualities or the shapeshifting capacity that a symbiote has, and sometimes it's just nice to fight in a different way. One thing Polymorph does have, however, it gives you the capacity to have the creature's hit points that you turn into, so it is a great way of sponging up damage that you would otherwise take. Another possible use would be to turn into something with an unusual shape. A constricting snake, for example, might be able to weave its way around certain areas that you normally wouldn't get to in your present form. Whilst not the best use of this spell, it is pretty good in an emergency. This character was an amazing suggestion, not only because I had so much fun doing it, but actually because it was quite challenging to accomplish as well. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this Venom build. Whilst doing a little bit of additional research for the build, I happened to notice that there's a new Venom film coming out this year, so I am really looking forward to that. Perhaps it was part of the reason they asked for this build in the first place. Still, whatever the reasons, it was a really interesting theme and I had lots of fun making it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed viewing it too. If you like this build, please leave a like. The more likes we get, the more YouTube promotes the content. If you're not subscribed already, why not do so? And if you have suggestions of your own symbiote or you've got more builds that you'd like me to have a crack at, then leave it in the comments section below. And I will see you guys next time at the gaming table.